It's been a challenging week or two at the hospital. We have quite a diverse staff of people gathered from all over the world. And so as I've talked with people who have families in Houston, I've been hearing of the devastation there and concern for loved ones. As I've talked with people who have come to the United States from South Asia, I've been hearing of the flooding there as well. It seems that with Hurricane Harvey having come through last week, our attention has been focused on Texas. And many of us have missed the devastating flooding that's been taking place in India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, leaving more than 1,000 people dead and some 41 million people struggling to rebuild their lives. It's been painful listening to people talking about what's going on with their families. Of course, we then have the magnitude 8.1 earthquake just off the coast of Mexico, which fortunately only left dozens dead, though it affected those in the Mexican states of Chiapas and Oaxaca, as well as Guatemala. Of course, now we've got Hurricane Irene that's just passed over devastating Antigua and Barbuda and is now coming ashore as a Category 4 storm in Florida, with Jose right on her tracks and Katia now hammering the east coast of Mexico. Oh my gosh. This is a challenging time for anybody who loves people, for anyone who has connections outside of our immediate area. Because even as we here enjoy beautiful weather, our first church picnic that hasn't been rained out in 3 years, we're also aware of people battling wildfires in the Northwest and of landslides in Sierra Leone. Oh my gosh. Now, our United Church of Christ has been responding already. The UCC Disasters Ministry, in partnership with Church World Service, has begun reaching out to those in affected areas, starting off with the blankets. You remember Blanket Sunday? Yeah. Starting off with blankets for those who need them and cleanup buckets. Oh, right, we collect those too, don't we? Our UCC and our Church World Service partners aren't the first ones on the scene. I got to give credit, that's the Southern Baptists. They are the fastest in getting people there to start the process of immediate recovery. We come in a little bit later, usually, the United Church of Christ. And it's funny how disaster work has been parceled out among different denominations. We all specialize in something. The Baptists and the Salvation Army get there first. The United Church of Christ, we leave last. We're the ones who come in and help people reestablish after the immediate crisis is past. I remember several years ago, before returning to Connecticut, when I lived in New Jersey, I was one of the disaster response coordinators for the Central Atlantic Conference of the UCC. I was one of those folks who was down in New Orleans after Katrina. A year after Katrina, in fact, down in the lower Ninth Ward, where houses that had been picked up and shifted off their foundations were still sitting there in the middle of the roads, if you could call them roads, in the middle of the debris field, really. We're always called as God's people to reach out and help people who are in need. And whether we're the first on the scene where the last one's still there. We all have something important to do. As I was thinking about all of the people who are fleeing their homes at the moment, I was reflecting on the texts of the day. We have this reading from the book of Exodus, where God is giving the commandment to the Hebrew people, telling them what to do, because the time to flee is at hand. The spirit of death is about to come and kill the firstborn of each of the Egyptian households. And the Jewish households are commanded to kill a lamb and to put its blood on the doorposts, to roast the lamb and to have a hasty dinner. A dinner of unleavened bread, because it's not going to have time to rise. They're told to stand there and eat, not to sit down, but to eat standing up, with their shoes on their feet and their staff in their hands, ready to walk out the door. It's time to get moving, God tells the people. You have to travel light. Don't take much with you, because you're going to spend a lot of time walking. And of course we know that story that went on to be 40 years of wandering the desert, following Moses, grumbling at those times when they couldn't find the water they needed, or complaining when all they had was manna given from the hand of God to eat, grousing about quail, which is different from quailing from grouse. But they made their way through the deserts, traveling light. I wonder what we would take if we were told, get up and go, now. I know that I've got my short list of things. If I were at home, I know what I would take. First off, the banjo. It's one of the few things that I have that isn't replaceable, because of all the signatures on the head from musicians that I've met and loved, some of whom are gone. After that, probably the portable hard drive that has all of the photos dating back to Ian's childhood. And then I guess maybe I'd have to grab the great big Rubbermaid container, throw that in the back of the car. That's the one that has all of the childhood memorabilia from my own childhood and Kimberly's. And those things from Ian that predate the digital era. Yes, I used to shoot film once upon a time. What would you take? What are those things that if you had to get out and move would be the first things you'd grab?
My husband.
You know, I'm sure Dick appreciates that. And I would like to believe that he would grab you as well.
Not sure.
I'm not going to ask him. What else would you take? What are the first things you would want to make sure you had?
Pictures of my kids.
The cats.
Pictures.
Pictures. The safe deposit box. Take the credit cards. Yeah, the folks who tell us what we should take have that list of things that should be in the grab bag. Some water, a little bit of food because you don't know how long it's going to be before you can find something. Your medications. Grab your medications. You might need those. But those are the things that are practical. Now, as a church, Paul, would we grab the organ? No. Would we pick up the pulpit and take it with us?
No.
Probably not. I'm guessing the pews would probably get left behind as well. I remember many years ago when I was part of a Bible study group in Virginia. Virginia, there was a church fire. And the article that ran in the newspaper that had a picture of the steeple ablaze and people gathered around, the caption said, "The church stood outside while the building burned." We wouldn't bring the organ with us, but we bring music. We wouldn't bring the pulpit with us, but we bring the scripture. We wouldn't bring the pews, but we would certainly bring the people. Today, as we gather, we find ourselves once more gathered on holy ground. You remember last week's sermon talking about holy ground. Well, I've got a clue for you. Wherever God's people are gathered is holy. Because God calls us indeed to travel light, not to be stuck in a building in what one of my seminary professors loved to call the God box, the place where we're comfortable in the four walls. We're called to take the church with us wherever we go. Of course, that's what the Apostle Paul was talking about when he was telling the church how to live. Travel light, he said. He didn't use those words, but that's what he told them. Owe no one anything except love. And he then gave the list of commandments. And he said, but you know the saying, and he quotes Jesus, love your neighbor as yourself, really encapsulates all of that. You don't need those 613 mitzvot in the Hebrew Scriptures. You don't need just the 10 Commandments. All you need is that single law. Love your neighbor as you love yourselves. And so we find ourselves coming together today, traveling light, trying to find the place where loving our neighbor really changes the world. Now, if you haven't already written checks or made online contributions for disaster relief, there are opportunities ahead. We have been receiving gifts at the church. Denominationally, we've been doing it online. You can sit down with your credit card and you can make a contribution to help those who are dealing with natural and human-caused disasters. It's one of the most tangible ways that we can reach out in love for our neighbors. To love them just as we love ourselves, whether they're in Houston or Florida or Bangladesh. We're called to remember that we are not complete whenever there's someone else who is incomplete. As Dr. King said, no one is free when others are oppressed. It's the same thing is true. No one can be comfortable when others are living in a place of disaster. Let us then offer our best, traveling light, helping others as they are traveling light by force, that we might help them reestablish their lives. Let us give generously for the work of our church. And yes, this sounds a lot like the call to offering, but I'm going to let you do that a little bit later anyway. But let us give of ourselves, give of our best, because that's what it means to be people of faith, reaching out to share. May we do so as children of God. Amen.